12 dead in a shooting, in a terrorist attack in Paris, France. The terrorists with their AK-47s, which for the Moms Demand crowd who are trying to say that these are NRA guns, they're made in Russia, shouting that they had somehow avenged their prophet Muhammad, who had been insulted. How had he been insulted? Oh, with drawings, with silly drawings making fun of him. Same as it was in Denmark just a few years ago, or the documentary with Theo Van Gogh. Same as it was when Molly Norris, a cartoonist in Seattle, Washington, this is in the United States. She had to go into hiding as a result of death threats. She's still in hiding. She's changed her name because people, Islamists, were threatening to kill her because she proposed the Everybody Draw Muhammad Day. Islamists can dish it out, but they just can't seem to take it. They'll burn flags and they'll burn pictures of world leaders. They'll dismember bodies and hang them from bridges, all while being afraid of something as insignificant as a silly cartoon that made fun of them. Now, my God is omnipotent. Omnipotent gods don't fear cartoons. Omnipotent gods don't fear free speech. See, terrorists are scary, yeah, but they're also scared of like everything, it seems. But unfortunately, their brand of terrorism is working. They're winning. The publication that ran the offending cartoons, Charlie Hebdo, a French satirical magazine, seems to have had more bravery and willingness to stand up for free speech than all of the mainstream media combined, which is so funny considering how often the press lauds themselves as the revered fourth pillar of democracy, without who the throngs of commoners would be lost. But these champions of free speech still cannot even bring themselves to show the images that we just showed you in the opening of the show and now without blurring out and censoring them out of fear. This isn't the first time the magazine has made waves. This magazine has been around for decades. It's like the Mad Magazine of France, making fun not just of Islam, but of the Jewish faith, of Christianity, of political officials in France, whatever tickled their fancy. It's like South Park. But they also put their money where their mouths were in regards to their right to publish their brand of satire. For instance, in 2012, after Charlie Hebdo's offices were firebombed, editor Stéphane Charbonnier said this about the bullying attempt, quote, "I'd rather die standing than live on my knees." And here he is saying that he'd rather die than be silenced.
Our job is not to defend freedom of speech, but without freedom of speech, we are dead. We can't live in a country without freedom of speech. I prefer to die than live like a rat.
Wow. And sadly, he did just that. But his sacrifice in the name of free speech that I probably would have often disagreed with should be revered, and it should be remembered. And it's going to be remembered, and it's going to be acknowledged by this program. But the Telegraph and other publications, they're responding to his sacrifice and the others' sacrifice over at Charlie Hebdo in the name of freedom that goes to the very core of their industry, the freedom to speak one's mind by giving into the terrorists and giving them what they wanted. Silence. They should all be ashamed. In fact, some media have gone so far as to actually blame Charlie Hebdo and its editorial staff, like the administration did in 2012, for having the gall to do something that Islam doesn't like. At the Financial Times, editorialist Tony Barber, he is an associate editor, although Financial Times is saying he's just a columnist. He went so far as to say that the magazine, Charlie Hebdo, has a, quote, long record of mocking, baiting, and needling Muslims. And, he added, that too often editorial foolishness prevailed. In fact, Barber actually called the people who died today, before the bodies were even cold, might I add, stupid, his word, for what they had done. What did they do? What they did what they believed in. They thought that they had the right to believe what they wanted and the freedom to continue living while they did it. I never thought I'd say this, and this is gonna, I'm gonna swear to you I'm gonna bring this tugboat to shore. Bear with me for a moment. Never thought I'd say this, but what we need more of is Bill Maher's thinking on this. Yeah. Wait. Here's his tweet in response to the attack. Quote, condemning attack is not enough unless you strongly endorse the right of anyone to make fun of any religion/prophet. You're not a moderate Muslim. Shouldn't that kind of be the litmus test? I mean, damn right, There's nothing incompatible with believing in God, believing something is offensive, but also believing that others have the freedom to have their own beliefs and express them how they want. And if your religion teaches that you can't tolerate dissent, that you must murder apostates and unbelievers, then frankly, your religion is incompatible with the civilized world. Just look at the famous, I can't say it, but Urine Christ that came out several years ago. Can I make a note about this? The Associated Press was selling photos of the Urine Christ, the crucifix in a jar of urine, simultaneously while they were censoring images of Muhammad. Now, this piece of art, were Christians disgusted? Absolutely. It was any animal can shock. A dog can shock. It's the lowest form of art. And conservatives were rightfully upset that any government funding, this was taxpayer funded, it was involved with this. But at any time, was it the position of the Christian right that this so-called artist wasn't allowed or shouldn't be permitted to show off his art? I mean, we'd rather not with public funds, but no, I don't recall any beheadings. You know, I mean, I was looking online, I don't recall any beheadings. Never, because God gave us all free will. God gave us free will, and I pity the God that doesn't give their followers free will. And with free will comes free speech. So while it's clear that there is moral distinction to be drawn, that other religious groups do not shoot people for mocking their religion, for instance, this still doesn't stop the moral relativists from pretending that we're all the same and no one group is worse than another. CNN's Sally Kohn wonders aloud on Twitter why, quote, Jews and Christians who kill in the name of religion aren't called extremists, but Muslims killing in the name of religion equals all Muslims? Come on. Gee, I don't know, Sally. Maybe it's just because the instances of that happening are so few and far between as to be the very definition of fringe. I don't know what it is that makes the Sally Kohns of this world believe that in order to accept evil or good, that either of them exist, you must accept that everyone is equally evil and good. The idea of a bad guy or of a moral constant is completely foreign to the Sally Kohns of this world. Let me break it down for you, Sally. You're so wrong on this. When Timothy McVeigh bombed a federal building on his own and with no support groups or countries or churches that said, hey, we're so glad you did this to McVeigh, he wasn't a Christian. That's been debunked 11 trillion times. You could say that he was an actual lone wolf. That's one crazy guy out in the wilderness doing what crazy, screwed up people do. But when you have dozens upon dozens of murders and bombings and attacks that are taking place, and every time they do, there are scores of like-minded folks in the Middle East cheering. There are groups that work together, and they know one another, and they congratulate one another, and they pass out treats in the streets, and they release videos professionally produced claiming responsibility. When acts are committed specifically in the name of a religion and not just as a passing biographical point. When Allahu Akbar is being shouted and the Quran is being cited, well, yeah, that's organized terrorism. Can you imagine that in Texas, by the way? Allahu Akbar, boom, no. And it's very different than these individual atrocities that you're trying to draw comparisons to. And people like you, Sally Kohns of the world, are the reason that they keep operating mostly unimpeded. You give them cover, you give them sanction, you're a terrorist apologist, like it or not.